All right. Well,
Yeah.
Eric, what have you got for us on the state of Healdsburg?
Yeah, just in general, talk about what's been going on and what's coming up in commercial in town. And I think, can everybody see my screen?
No, not yet. I think you'll need to share it one more time.
See it?
Yes, it's up now.
Okay, good. So, this is I'm a little bit, I changed the order of things in my mind of what I want to present, but here's who I am. A lot of you know me. I've been in commercial real estate in Healdsburg since 1975, with wearing different hats. I wanted to talk a little bit about local demographics as it affects downtown, just the general retail, restaurants, industrial, the changes that are coming up over the next 3 years, and some of the developments and drivers of change over the next 3 years. I know one of the things of a lot of interest is just the details on what's going on. I listed some of the COVID vacancies. I'll come back to this more in the Q&A part, but I just wanted everybody to know that, because I want to focus on what people are interested in terms of vacancies and, the restaurant, whatnot, retail, office space. Currently by far the weakest part of commercial in Healdsburg is office space, but there are things going on. There's expansion. I'll get into the details more on Q&A. The industrial has been the strongest. We've leased quite a bit of space. We've leased quite a bit of industrial space. There's one in particular, a large space that just came available up on Grove Street, 11,000 square feet. There's some considerable interest in that. The industrial is the strongest segment of the commercial market. A lot of persistent vacancies, and I'll go back and talk about some of these specific ones, such as the office space above Willie's Seafood that has been vacant for 2.5 years, and the Bear Republic restaurant are of particular interest. There's been a number of investments sold and commercial investments. And again, I'll spend more time in specifics on these due to questions that everybody might have. Cannabis, we can talk half an hour on that alone from a commercial point of view. Hospitality, Riverbell Inn sold. Hospitality is a very strong segment of the commercial operations. We've had a number of expansions and retentions in town. ETS Labs and Scott Labs almost doubled their space by taking over the Healdsburg Hospital admin building over by the post office on Foss Creek Circle. I want to this is the same slide that I had last year, but it is basically the same. Enzo Village will be opening next year. Mill District will be hopefully starting construction and opening in 2004, their 53-room boutique hotel. The Mill District is just now going vertical on their first, I think it's 40 units of high-end housing. Madrona Manor reopened recently. Honor Mansion is working on open. They have opened the only the bed and breakfast aspect of it. Shed reopened as Little Saint. This is now a year old. Duchamp is continuing to work on plans to expand. The North Village, Charlie Palmer's 108-room, that's still underway. It's probably opening needs to change to 2024. These were all on the books a year ago. Montage Residences, the first 25 of 66 are nearing construction, and they'll be ready for occupancy this year. The Foley Farmers Market, I think that needs to change to 24. Maybe Jeff K can tell us it's more likely 25 to get that up and running. Restaurants, we've had some good different things. The Fog Belt Brewery finally opened. Campofino closed. Bistro Ralph has been closed for a year and a half. It's surprising that hasn't found a tenant. Wildflower, there's been a lot of interest in it. That's the old Western Boot. Bear Republic is finally, the landlord has decided to, for a couple of years, the landlord did not want to spend the considerable amount of money to bring it up to a cold shell. It needed structural work without having a tenant in place to negotiate where bathrooms would be and where plumbing would go. But the tenant has decided, after several tenants backed out because of uncertainty of timing, decided to go ahead, and that construction work is underway as we speak. The annex is also nearing completion. We have draft leases out there. I won't say on the Bear Republic Annex, I won't say any more, and let the parties finish their lease negotiations and make their own announcements. Some of you probably know Lisa Matson, and rather than me redoing it, I wanted to just share her blog on what's new in Healdsburg. It's if I can get hers. It looks like my link isn't working, but if you haven't seen her blog, this is a really good summary of new restaurants that have opened in Healdsburg. Let me.
I put it in the chat for anybody who would like to.
Good. Thank you. I really encourage you. Lisa has done a great job of summarizing the restaurant activity and hospitality activity in that, and I really encourage you to take a look at it. Next 24 months, these numbers are close. I didn't get the exact numbers, but Box Heart Retail will be adjoining Enzo will be opening. Mill District, I think it's actually about 9,000 square feet at Mill District. 359 Hudson Street over the next 24 months. Healdsburg Lumber is nearing completion of their new project on the other side of the railroad tracks, and they will be moving to their new home and leasing their old home, which is a significant amount of downtown retail office, whatever it might be used for. It's zoned mixed use, which is the same zoning that the Mill District has. So there could be a lot of possibilities coming up there. Here's what's currently available in terms of the existing lumberyard. Of course, it won't be ready to move in until Healdsburg Lumber moves over to their new home, but that should be next spring, summer. And I wanted to go into a couple of things. It's partly is my sharing a few things about what is going on in nearby communities. I just pulled something from the Napa Register about the First Street Napa downtown, and I just to keep things in a little bit of perspective. Usually we don't get the details, but there's some litigation going on with some tenants. So the Napa Register came out and published this, that downtown Napa rents for high-end shops are running $6.25 per square foot, which makes our shops on the plaza, and as a general rule, look reasonably valued. I also wanted to point out that Healdsburg is not the most expensive community in Sonoma County, and it actually rates as, in general, as the fourth most expensive in terms of median cost housing, with the Sonoma Coast being the highest, Sebastopol the next, Sonoma County the third, and Healdsburg the fourth. These, as all statistics, these can very often be misleading because it really has to do with what the ratio of small subdivisions served by city sewer as it relates to rural populations. And all of these where there's the highest median price are all small communities within our area. If you really look, if you dive down to Healdsburg's median cost and break it down to properties served by city sewer versus property on septic systems, you'll find two very different kinds of numbers. The median price in the city could be considerably less. I pulled a few things on the demographics of how many people live and what are the demographics within 2 miles of the Healdsburg Plaza, and the 12,000 people, 22,000 within 5 miles. It's interesting, median age 45. And then you look at the demographics of 2 miles from downtown St. Helena, much smaller population, about the same age. Just as an aside, a lot of these demographics, they have a third column, a 2 mile, 5 mile, and a 10 mile. I wanted to point out to everybody that the 10 mile for Healdsburg includes all of Windsor, which is not part of our commercial marketplace. Windsor, oops, I'm sorry, this is back to St. Helena. Whoops, okay, well, so I got the wrong chart here. Windsor has a population within two miles, and I repeated the St. Helena demographics, but the population within 2 miles of downtown Windsor is over 20,000 people, more than triple what we have, and that kind of defines the type of retail, the type of commercial that you end up with. I thought I'd throw in a little bit about COVID vacancies and very, very persistent vacancies. 405 Healdsburg Avenue was an office space that SoFi moved out of 3 years ago and has stayed vacant. 16001 Healdsburg Avenue did get leased to Corazon. The Center Street units have remained vacant for more than a year. 111 West North Street is an office space that was vacated during the pandemic, got leased for 1 year, and those people moved out last month. I want to do, in terms of something else, just give a heads up of parking. Healdsburg used to had a parking problem in the 40s, and by 1950, this is downtown Healdsburg, 1956, there were 136 coin operated parking meters in the 1956. The freeway bypassed us in 1960. Everything got torn down and we had no need for parking management. From 37, when the Golden Gate Bridge opened, Healdsburg had a parking problem. Just a little summary of the parking issues. In 2000, downtown Healdsburg started back to life. In 2020 to 2022, the city eliminated over 100 public parking spaces by granting parklets of certain businesses. The overflow parking overwhelmed downtown private parking lots. People looking for a place to park instead of parking where there's ample park at three blocks away, such as over at City Hall, they park in private parking lots. Several of the private parking lot, one has already implemented paid parking, and several others are beginning to implement paid parking, and you'll see more of that this coming year. The air garage, some of you have experienced air garage. It's a very nice, it's been implemented over behind the Matheson, and it is a very simple thing. It doesn't need kiosks. You sign in on an app. You call a phone number, sign in, you use your QR code, and then the local businesses you can either pay and not shop, or you can pay and shop and get a credit on your parking fees. This is another one of the signs that are up, and there'll be others coming up to establish paid parking, being as that there with the advent of the parklets. And by the way, the parklets have been very successful, and I'm very much in favor of them for the benefit of the businesses participating. However, it has caused it's caused parking problems on other private parking lots that are designed for their own employees and customers. So that's the basic part of what I wanted to talk about, but I think I know that there's a lot of questions about specific things. Probably the most lively talked about recently is what's going on with some of the restaurants downtown. Campo Fino, Bear Republic, the old Bistro Ralph, the old Western Boot. And so I thought I'd take a few minutes, if I have any time left, to respond to some questions.
Okay, anybody have questions out there for Eric? Let me put my.
Yeah, Eric, this is Dick Bertapelli. On the parklets, do those businesses get charged anything for the use of that space? I see a lot of parklets that seemingly go unused.
I know the city has talked about that. I'm not aware of any implementation of a parking fee, or I mean of a parklet fee. Maybe Dave Hagley or Jeff could answer that.
Sure, I can do that real quick. The council approved a parklet program that will outlast the pandemic. So that was an emergency program and there was no charge. Starting in January, there will be a permitting process, which includes what we believe to be it's a weird exercise, but a fair market cost per square foot. So that's all of the parklet owners have been notified, and that's coming. And it may result in the loss of some of the parklets that are not all that well utilized. There's also a clause in the new license agreement requiring it to be open for, I forget the number, but a certain number of hours per week. And it's designed to ensure that if we're going to lose parking spaces, we do have some high level of activity in those parklets.
Thank you.
So any activity at all on those 3 restaurant spaces?
There's quite a bit of activity on Campofino. There is some activity there's a lease out to divide the old Western Boot down to 2 pieces, which would leave about 1,200 square feet where the old bar was. We had a lease together with another brew pub for the Bear Republic that fell apart due to timing and cost of the renovations that are needed there. I'm not intimately familiar with the old Bistro Ralph space, other than it's been available for a long time, and it has a lot of, I'm surprised, it's a great little spot for an owner operator. It's too small for a typical, a small chain or something that needs management other than ownership. So there is activity on all of it.
I'm assuming some of this is kind of pandemic hangover.
Yeah, right. A lot of it is pandemic hangover, correct.
What about the office space issues? That also obviously has a large pandemic issue with the working from home, and then, some of that becoming ingrained a little bit in what's going on. And obviously there's a movement to bring people back into the office, which is being met with some resistance.
Right. I don't see the office space getting better for some time. We're talking to some of them about changing the usage to residential, to other types of spaces, trying to find, perhaps get particularly some of the downtown upstairs space where artists might want to have a retail type store downtown but can't afford downtown rents. So if you want to be downtown retail on or near, within 2 blocks of the plaza, you're going to pay $3-4 a square foot, but doing upstairs space might be $1.50 to $2. So we're hoping that we might find some retailers that want to be downtown but don't need storefronts. That would typically often be working artists, perhaps. But if anybody with any ideas, we would love to.
Some of that would require change in use, right? Or
yeah, changing from office to residential is a very, very expensive prospect because you have code separations, fire code issues to deal with.
When you have use limitations too within the city, have you been looking at that, Jeff, at all? I don't know. It's probably fairly new, being it's just the last couple of years, but.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's been explicitly reviewed in terms of office conversions, so it is a really good, interesting question. Eric's right. It's even if you take away the zoning issues, it's not simple. So I can't think of many times in my career I've seen it done. We are looking, the council had a discussion just at the last meeting about downtown densities in general, because even putting that aside, we have some real impediments to building housing at scale in the downtown area in terms of what's allowed in our general plan. So that conversation is going to be active in the next, I'd say, 12 to 18 months.
Yeah, well, just as an example, the 10,000 square feet above Willie's Seafood where SoFi left, we've had some discussions. The zoning code only allows one residential unit per 2,500 square feet. So that to convert that to residential, you would only be able to do 4 very large apartments, 2,500 square feet each. Whereas the market for downtown would want to see more studios and 1 bedrooms, maybe 10 of them, but the zoning densities don't allow that. So the zoning encourages very high, very expensive, and very few.
All right, we got a question from Sandy.
Yes, good morning. Has Healdsburg ever had, or does it have any rent control laws?
I guess that's a question for Jeff.
To the best of my knowledge, no, there are definitely, Eric's our local historian, so he may have some other context.
Yeah, well, we've never had rent control from a city's point of view. We've had a lot of rent control based on fire gouging, based on state law, but not on local law.
All right. Any other questions out there?
Yeah, I just Will Seppi here with Cousteau. I think Eric be great to see those office vacancies get filled or converted. Obviously, bring up those points of getting them into residential, but I think that would be obviously a transformative thing for downtown. Clearly, the last 2 years with these vacancies that are persisting have had a tremendous negative impact on retail, right, and daily flow in and out of retail establishments. So it's concerning, right? Not hearing that there's interest or active interest to fill those things up, and be happy to try to help support if there's landowners there that want to try to get those things into residential. I'd be happy to voice with the city. I know we've got them online here, but we've got to do some things to get our downtown economy maintained and thriving.
Yeah, well, it's just like the people that want to build their own residence on the 3rd or 4th floor of 444 Healdsburg Avenue, the orange door metal building. The zoning code only allows 2 units plus a ADU. They would much rather have more units, but because of the zoning ordinance, they'll end up with a 3,500 square foot and a 5,000 square foot. Not because that's what they want, but that's what the zoning requires. Rather than having 4 or 5 units, they're limited to 2.
All right. Well, lots of issues, some of which are long-term things, careful what you wish for type stuff.
Right.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Eric. I don't see any other questions out there. Always great to hear from you. And obviously everybody's interested since we've taken a good half hour just going over it. And everybody knows where to get a hold of Eric if you have other questions as well. And Jessica has put in the chat room where you can go in to get the Wine Country information on the, I forget who's the lady who does the blog, but that's available there. All right, let's jump over to City Council. David?
Good morning.
What have you got for us?
Good morning, Healdsburg. Well, we have a pretty exciting weekend coming up. We've got the lighting of the tree tomorrow in the Healdsburg Plaza. And I think the height is 48 feet, I think. I'm not sure, but we try to keep it, grand. So that'll be exciting. There's going to be singing. There's going to be treats handed out by Corazon. It's, I heard Santa's going to be rolling into town. He always likes to stop by Healdsburg on his before he starts his route in his very busy night coming up. So we have that going on, and then also the senior appreciation dinner. If anybody wants to volunteer, there's opportunities there, and I know they were looking for some wine, so if anybody has extra wine they want to donate to that event, that's always a great event with head chef Gary Ploss in the kitchen, a lot of former mayors and council members cooking away in the kitchen, and then all the seniors come up, get all dressed up, and it's a really nice event. So a lot of exciting things coming up. And then we also just wanted to touch base on a couple items coming up on the council agenda. I think one of the couple relevant things, first of all, we're going to have a proclamation recognizing Jerry Edinger for his, not years, decades of service to the city of Healdsburg, going back to the 70s. And that's a big one. He recently retired from the planning commission. And so I think there's one person that deserves a little tip of the hat for sure. We have on our agenda, we're going to get an update on our first quarter financials. That includes TOT, sales tax, transfer tax, all of that. So that in the context of kind of Eric's presentation and, some of the questions about how retail's doing, I think that'll be a really good meeting to tune into. And our meetings, you can still join in person or via Zoom, both ways. We're going to get an update on our diversity, equity, and inclusion plan development with the firm that's been doing the different meetings. They're going to come and give us a quick update. Let's see. And then the big one is we're going to be welcoming our new council members, and the election has not been certified. It's going to be certified tomorrow, But based on statistics, I think we have a pretty good idea of who the new council members are going to be. There's as of last week, there were 2,000 ballots outstanding countywide. And based on my amateur math, it would, based on past ballot count drops with what's left, it would mean there's maybe like 48 ballots that'll be added to the Healdsburg total. So we're going to be swearing in the new council members. Will be the first time in 2.5 years we'll have a fully elected council and a full council in quite some time. So that's going to be exciting. And I think those are the main things that I had. Jeff, do you have anything you want to add?
Sure, just a couple quick things. First off, I want to thank Eric for the update. It's always super, super helpful for me to be able to hear that. So somebody with a just incredible wealth of knowledge, thank you for sharing that with us. In terms of, the election, we're told it'll be certified tomorrow. I am trusting the math of the esteemed council member, and we've already gotten underway. It is on the agenda for Monday night. The state law says you swear in the new council on the first meeting after the certification of the election. I sure wish they would have certified the election a week ago for planning purposes, but we're ready to go. So assuming the council member's math is right, and I trust that it is, we're ready to roll on that. We're also working really hard to provide orientation and support to the presumed winners. That's a big part of what I see as my role in the next month or so is to connect the new council members with our staff and just get them up to speed with all the procedural stuff that is a lot, even for people who are well-versed and experienced in tracking municipal affairs. It can be a lot. So I see that as really the top priority for me over the next several weeks, is just make sure we're supporting those folks with everything they need to hit the ground running. After Monday, we'll have what I think will be one more meeting in December that'll be pretty light, but then we get right back to work with some pretty complex and important stuff coming in January. So working on that. And we do have a lot of good events coming up. We're going big tomorrow. The rain will hold out. I'll just share for the senior appreciation dinner. I think we still have some posts on our community services Facebook looking for volunteers. We're just about there. And I know they're out looking for wine too. So there may be a chance to help. I know last year I was able to work the delivery shift. We had, especially in the wake of COVID, have a lot of seniors who've asked for their meals to be delivered. Super neat experience to get out there to the community and people being so appreciative. So I plan to do that again on Sunday and then report to my shift in the kitchen after that. So it's a very, very impressive and really exciting event for Healdsburg. We also have on the 16th, we'll be partnering with Corazon for a community posada, which is a Latin American tradition, largely in Mexico, around the holidays, and we'll combine that with a celebration of Hanukkah, which will start a couple days after that. So it'll be an interesting, fun, cross-cultural event, informally dubbed the Posadica. So I just want to put that on people's radars too, and I think it'll be a great way to honor a few different segments of our community. So a very busy period here in Healdsburg, but good things going on. And then real quick, just want to note that we did have 2 ballot measures on the election. And those, I think, are pretty darn safe at this point. One needed 2/3 to pass, one needed half, and they're both sitting at about 73 to 75%. So one was an adjustment of our TOT to allow us to finance park improvements. I think I've talked about it with this group before, so I won't really get into it, except to say it's, to me, an exciting opportunity for us to move on some of these big park projects that we have planned. And then the other one was a cannabis business tax. So that's coming out in advance of what Eric alluded to, which is that we're working through that policy, and that'll come in the spring. It'll be finalized late winter or spring. But the community did give the go-ahead to taxing those businesses. So we'll take that direction for what it is. But I just, even putting aside the content of those 2 measures, when you have mid-70s support for things that the city puts on the ballot, that's pretty unusual. So I'm choosing personally to take that as a sign of, most of the people out there are trusting what this organization is doing and supportive of the things we're trying to move forward. So that's my own personal spin, but I'm sticking to that.
despite what anybody else may say, right?
I didn't say everybody. But sometimes we hear from the folks, and I know you all do too, who are frustrated, and we take that seriously and we respond to that. But it's nice to have a reminder sometimes that there's a lot of people who.
So we have interest in announcing in the cannabis area. I mean, that may take up some of the space that we've been talking about.
Yeah, short answer, yes. I think there's quite a bit of interest. We haven't fully approved where it can be allowed, but folks are welcome to go back to the most recent council discussion, or I can point you to that because we have some pretty precise at this point direction from the city council on what that looks like. So as that takes shape, there's a lot of interest, yeah.
Can you give us a little, like a general idea of what the direction is at this point?
Sure, it's we're looking at 2 retail dispensaries and potentially some other ancillary businesses like manufacturing, which would be obviously in industrial areas. But for retail, where we're headed is most of the commercial space in the city would be permitted, with the exception of right on the plaza. So that's the direction we have at this time. There's a little bit more nuance to it than that. We with some buffers. Not getting too close to sensitive uses like a school, but we've been fine tuning exactly how that gets interpreted, and quite a bit of commercial space will be eligible.
Yeah, and are there limitations on that like you do with, say, tasting rooms and things like that?
Well, the limitation really comes in that we're only permitting 2 at this time.
Oh, yeah.
So you're not going to end up with that concentration situation.
Yeah, that would take care of that. Okay, Dave mentioned you guys are taking a look at things like the TOT tax and some of the other things. What's online there, given where we're at with retail uses and downturns? Anything, what are we looking at as far as what's coming up for review? Yes, Dave, you want to take that one? This is city. You mentioned something about city council meeting.
Oh, the agenda item that's on there is a review of our financials. Like, we're going to get a financial update after the first quarter because we're on a fiscal year. So we'll get a report on what I just scanned through it last night. The dog woke me up with the rain. So I was on my phone and read the agenda. So I don't have all the details. We just got the agenda yesterday, but I'll post a link to my city council Facebook page. It's also on the city's website. But I mean, you can dive in and read the report, but it's real interesting to watch the council meetings because the slide deck is good. The presentation will be good, and there'll be some questions asked. And I think, Jeff, the overall is what the sales tax is. It was slightly ahead, but we're really kind of keeping an eye on the second quarter. We've been hearing, kind of the sense of, well, it seems like a little slower than a year ago. And there's a lot of things with COVID and, how certain areas did really well during COVID because everybody's trying to escape the city. And then people are, this year they're traveling to Europe. And, so you hear all that anecdotal stuff, and we're going to start seeing the numbers come in. And so I think that's something that the city's been really good at keeping an eye on. And as we do look at, the vote from Measure L and bonding against or financing against TOT revenue, it's something that we are definitely going to be aware of and looking at with open eyes to make sure that we're not getting them over our skis, so to speak.
Yeah,
but it's an interesting one to tune in, and I'd recommend everybody tune in. If you can't, I'd download the agenda because it does spell that stuff out. Jeff, do you want to do like a quick overview on it, on some of the highlights?
Sure. Yeah, just very quickly in terms of revenue, the big ones for us are sales tax, where we're trending just a little bit ahead of what we forecast, which is good, but not transformative. For TOT, which is a real window into this massive driver of our economy, for the first quarter, so 3 months of the year, we pulled in 30% of our annual revenue estimates, so 25% of the way through the year, 30% of the revenue. On the face of it, that sounds great, but it's of course seasonal, and that first quarter is peak. So looking at past years, it actually suggests that we're trailing the forecast just a little bit. I'm not worried about that from a financial perspective. We have reserves. These are all estimates. Some things go up, some things go down. So I think the city is still in a very strong financial position, but it does bear watching as Councilmember Hagley just said, in that we've just seen massive escalations in TOT revenues over the last couple of years, and that couldn't continue forever. And it seems like we're now continuing to be very strong and very healthy, but having reached, at least until we have additional hotels come online, having reached the end of, or potentially reached the end of this massive ramp up. So we are watching it closely. We're fine financially, but it was a bit of a soft quarter, relatively speaking. So it's worth keeping an eye on.
On the sales tax data, was there any particular business segment that was helping drive that?
Yeah, gas.
Yeah.
Truly. And so that's not special here, but as prices of gas and service stations go up. So that's the big one, but food and restaurants continued, hotels and restaurants, in spite of what I just said about a slight softening, they continue to be a big driver of
'Cause
our economy.
Used to be the automobile dealerships, not so much of this.
Yeah, and that one, it's generally doing okay. It moves a little by dealership to dealership, but we're definitely seeing some softening there for the things that again, we're not immune to these macroeconomic forces, and people can't get cars right now. And that hasn't stopped. So we have seen some softening there. It's not out of line with what we're seeing around the state. So I don't think it's a major cause for concerns. One of these days they'll start making more cars again. But it hasn't been a great year so far for them.
Yeah, which you would pretty much expect at this point. Okay, Eric, got a question?
Yeah, just a quick question. I guess this is probably a Jeff question, but the Measure L allows bonds, and my understanding is that the city is almost shovel ready to spend 30 million on Badger Park and the Saggio Park. Now that that's passed, does that mean that bonds will be sold and that work will get started next year, or is that still years off?
Probably something in between those two. I'd say we're probably about a year away from being able to finalize the designs to a point where we could actually move forward to get through the permitting. We have conceptual designs, but to get to a point where we can get through the environmental work and the permitting, it's probably about a year. At that point, it's my intent to bring the city council some options for financing those. And I continue, even with the interest rates doing some funny things right now, I continue to believe there's a lot of potential there for us to move forward with those projects with something along those lines. But those conditions, I don't want to suggest that we're definitely not ready today. And we're going to have to watch project costs and financing markets and then put together a proposal in about a year and see if it still makes sense and see if the city council is comfortable with it.
What about the Foley Farmers Market? I know that was mentioned in Eric's report that it might be off another year.
It was, yeah, he suggests, Eric said, I didn't want to interrupt, I'm trying to find, I have my schedule here somewhere that I opened up and now of course I can't find it. Here it is. We are, I don't want to say 2025. He said pushing a little bit, but I'm not ready for that yet. We're looking at end of May to put the project out to bid. So we're refining the environmental review for that, and nothing bad has turned up yet, which is actually really good news. That can cost you months. So we're looking to put the project out to bid, hopefully by the end of May, and then this summer initiate construction. It's 12 plus months of construction in all likelihood. So that gets you through middle to late 2024, but I'm not ready to concede to 2025 yet. It's been quiet, but we are making some good progress.
Sounds good. All right. Anybody else have anything out there? Jessica, anything from the chamber?
We're excited for Mary Healdsburg and want to thank the city for partnering with us on that. It should be a lot of fun. The rain stopped just for us. The chamber is also hosting our sip and shop on Saturday evening. Check-ins at 4 p.m. at Craftwork. There's going to be 20 different stops in town, and it's featuring over 45 businesses. So it's a great way to show your support for all of our local business partners.
Great. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Really appreciate all of your work, and especially, you on the city council and the planning commission who dedicate a lot of your time, takes away from your families. I don't know that everybody appreciates that, but those of us, the 21 of us here do.
Mark, could I say a word?
No, I'm sorry, Dick. It's too late.
Okay.
No, go ahead.
I just want to remind everybody that on December 10th, the Rotary Club of Healdsburg Noon Club is going to be once again hosting an in-person crab feast, one of the highlight social events of Healdsburg for the year and kicking off the holiday season. We still have a few tickets available for the fireside room dining, which is buffet service, and we are looking for some help serving wine in the dining rooms. We've got an army of scouts and 4-Hers that are coming to help serve dinner, but for some reason they're not old enough to legally set a bottle of open wine on a table. So, the organization that has helped us has pretty well gone defunct, and so we're still needing a few bodies to help us there. If you want information about the organization, you can just go to healdsburgrotary.org, or if you want to email me, info@healdsburgrotary.org. Thank you.
Great. All right. Thanks, Dick. Everybody, if you didn't have a great Thanksgiving, I hope you did. And I hope Christmas is even better. We'll see you next year, I guess. Thanks. Talk to you guys later.
Thank you.